My bad.
Hello, are we live? People hear us? Chat, how you doing?
Damn it.
What are we damning? Don't damn it now, we just started.
Sorry.
Too late to back down now.
Alright, y'all hear us? Thank you so much for being here. Sorry for the delay. I had to do some last minute changes. Want to make this look nice and pretty for y'all. We are joined today by 5 of your peers, 5 fellow cardigans. Patrons, actually. Would you like to go ahead and say hello? I'll give you a little bit of a roll call here. Ari
Hi, y'all. I'm Ari.
and Eliza Lynn.
Hey, everybody. I'm Eliza. Nice to be here.
And we've got Izzy
Hi, guys.
and Matrix
Hiya.
and Sanji.
Hi, guys.
All right, now as you see here, I have a bit of a tracker on the screen, kind of keep track of our progress and how far we've come along today. So first off, I just want to know just a little bit of a description uh, going down the line. Can you tell me how familiar you are with D&D and if you've played before or if you've made a character before or just how far your familiarity with D&D currently goes? So beginning with Ari.
As far as D&D, T&D streams is the most that I know. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like roles and stuff, I mean, I just follow along through the streams. But then and beyond to like how the character works, I'm still pretty noob on that. So yeah.
Cool, cool. And next up, Eliza Lynn. Go ahead and let us know how are your familiarity last lanes.
Mostly Tingles and Dragons. I've watched a little Critical Role, and I have made a character, but it was all on my own with zero assistance. So I don't even know if I did it right.
All right. How'd you do it when you did it?
I used D&D Beyond and the Player's Handbook, so I just sat there and read the Player's Handbook like it was a sacred text, and then used
Gotcha.
D&D Beyond.
Okay, and Izzy?
I've only really watched D&D podcasts like Adventure Zone and then Tingles and Dragons. That's really it.
Cool, cool. Glad to know we've got so many 100% noobs today. It's good. It's best to start with 100% noobs because
Yeah.
you come in with no expectations, and you won't be coming at me like, oh well, technically, Cardlin, it's supposed to be like this. I'll let it slide this time. But all right. Matrix, what's your familiarity with D&D?
Same as everyone, T&D, and then I have kind of skimmed the player's rulebook, just like vaguely, because I have friends at university that play it, so I've...
Cool. And Sanji?
Mainly T&D, and just hearing it from my friends about how the game works slightly.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being fans of T&D. That's super awesome.
And congrats to T&D for hitting 1,000 subscribers!
Hey, today's the day. Okay, now this is going to be a little fun. Before we begin anything else, before we begin looking at all the different classes and all the different races and stuff, what do you hope to achieve today? Or what do you hope to... We're going to be making characters, so what kind of character are you hoping to make before you know anything else, before you see all the different options? Starting with Ari.
Mainly just how to again build a character and then knowing what the character can do while playing D&D. So that would be fun because upon character creation you get to know what your character can do, and push its boundaries while you're in game as well.
Cool. Is there any specific type of character you want to make?
Not much in mind. I'm still very open with what the character can be, so I'm pretty much dive into anything.
Okay. All right. Eliza, what about you?
Well, you know me. Once a healer, always a healer. So I would like to go in and try to see which race class combination would make not only a good healer that like mains in healing, but could also deal some damage and wouldn't have to be carried by the team.
Okay. I dig it. Izzy, what about you?
I'm not really sure yet. As long as I can beat up people, that's really the main goal.
Not sure, so long as they can beat people up. Sounds about right. And Matrix, what about you?
I don't really have much in particular. I mainly just want to be stealthy and sneaky.
Ooh, stealthy and
Ooh.
sneaky. I like it.
Ooh, nice.
And Sanji, have you put any thought into what kind of character you want to be?
Not really sure, but I'm hoping to build a character and understand how the skills and classes work, and maybe be slightly of a charmer.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that. All right, now while we get everything ready, and we've kind of given you all a brief introduction to your familiarity and your what kind of characters you're hoping to make out of this, would you mind giving the community just a kind of like a little bit of a brief description of who you are, what you do? I mean, other than be quarantined wherever you're quarantined, like back in the normal world, who were you and what did you do? Just to kind of give everybody a feel of like, oh, normal everyday people can do this too. So, starting at Ari, please.
Okay. So before quarantine, I'm not working, I usually work on creative stuff like I'm getting into reading now and also writing, so that's what I've been doing like before quarantine. So yeah.
Cool. Eliza?
I am a high school English teacher by day and a karaoke star by night.
Oh, dang. Nice.
Yeah.
Izzy?
Um, just college student with a mild obsession with frogs. That's it.
My obsession with frogs.
Yes.
I like it. Okay. Nice. Matrix?
As of today, actually, I'm a college graduate, and
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yay.
Woo!
And then also, I am a dancer.
Very cool. And Sanji? A dancer.
Nothing
Nice.
really out of the ordinary besides plugging in that Costco thing. But
Okay. Nice.
um, just a regular college student um, doing their own thing. Hopefully, to be a drama teacher in the near future, but that's all I can say.
Teacher.
Nice. I
Teacher.
like it.
Teachers.
$1.50 hot dogs. Nothing to laugh at. It's, you've very important service you provide.
I mean, uh, uh, just before anything happens, the fun fact, useless fact, the $1.50 hasn't actually changed ever since Costco opened. Haha.
Whoa.
Dang.
means
Oh,
at one
that's
point that was
crazy.
really expensive, unless it was like if when did it open in the 80s? Because $1.50 in the 80s was cheap. $1.50 in the 50s, that was like a lot of money. There's neither here nor there. All right, welcome to the stream wherein I teach you how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Now there's a lot of different places to start. I like to start with a character sheet and just taking a look at it. I'm gonna pull that up here. The character sheet is the lifeblood of your character. It basically tells you everything you need to know about your character, and it's also, unfortunately, the most intimidating part. Now, I've given each of you your individual character sheets. Go and pull them up now, and we'll go through the different parts of the character sheet together to kind of demystify and make these a little less scary. So, there are a lot of online character builders like D&D Beyond, which are going to be really easy, and they'll like basically do all the math for you. You just have to click a few things to make your decisions and you're done. We could do that today, but the goal of today is to basically learn D&D, unfortunately, not just play it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the process of trying to fill it in manually, which I know is a little daunting. It took me a long time, but hopefully with some patience and some work, we can figure it out together. Now, in terms of demystifying the character sheet, let's start here at the top. Character name. That's as simple as it sounds. You just basically type in whatever you want your character name to be. You can change it at any point before you start the game, and depending on your DM, if you really hate the character name you started with, um, you could change it after the fact. Fun fact, Howl was not Howl's original name.
Oh.
Howl's original name was something that brought up really dark memories from my childhood. So I br-
Aw.
I brought that up to him a couple of sessions in, and he was like, "Oh my God, why have we been playing with it for so long?" I was like, "Well,
Oh
I
my.
thought I could deal with it, but if we're talking about potentially changing names, I thought it might help." So he was really cool enough to change his name. Which is funny because I always thought that it would be so difficult to see him as any different name, and now everybody loves how he is, how and can see him as anything else. Looking in this box over here to the right of the character name, this is basically all your top level identification stuff. What class you are, as well as subclass, and we'll go into subclass later. Subclasses is basically when you get to a certain level, you get to choose which specialization of that class you are. So you may be a fighter, but what kind of fighter are you? Background. Background is something they added recently, and I really like it. Before, you were just a race and a class. Background chooses what your character does. So you may be a human bard, but what does your character do? Maybe they're an entertainer, so they'd be the entertainer background, or maybe they're a pirate, and they choose the pirate background. Background really opens up your character to roleplay and kind of describing what they are beyond just the stats on their character sheet. Player name is your name. That's where you can look to see who this character sheet belongs to. Race is which race your character is. Alignment is where your character falls generally in terms of disposition. The alignment, the array of alignments is something that is often argued and as to what alignment means what. If you're going to be playing D&D, you should honestly just talk about it with your DM to make sure you have a similar understanding of what alignment means what, because certain people might see certain alignments one way, and others might see certain alignments another way. So it's really on a per campaign basis as to how to determine your alignment. Experience is how many experience points you've gathered, and next level is how many experience points you need to reach the next level. Usually doing things like solving puzzles, killing monsters, talking your way out of difficult situations, navigating through dangerous dungeons full of traps. Any type of encounter usually garners your character some experience points, depending on how well they survive it. And level, last but not least, is what level you are. Everybody starts at level 1, so we can at least fill that in. Let's go ahead and do that now. We know for a fact we will start at level 1. Feel free to also fill in your player name. I have all your character sheets here individually, so I can at any time pull up your character sheet and make sure you're following along, and if you're not, you will be scolded appropriately.
No.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Mariah would like to know what alignments are the T&D characters. That's good to know. I don't know all of them. I don't have them all memorized. I know Jedediah is here. Let's pull up the alignment chart. Let me look one up. Let me look up a good alignment chart. Yeah, I guess this works.
Oh no.
Oh.
I love this.
Oh wow.
All right, so looking at this seems to be doing pretty well. You have a couple of different axes. At the top, these top 3 are all good. These bottom 3 are all evil. And these, the middle row is all neutral. Then going vertically, you have this left 3 is all lawful. This right 3 is all chaotic, and this middle 3 is all neutral once more. So these 9 landing spots are basically the 9 intersections of where these where you fall between chaos and law, as well as good versus evil. Now, looking at this, we have lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. Now, looking at this and looking at the group and what we've spoken about so far, I would say, what's up? What are we laughing at? What's going on? Did I mess something up?
Now we're all just
No.
thinking of the T&D characters on this chart. We're placing them in our heads.
Right. So where do we think Jedediah would land? Anybody?
I think he's chaotic good. He's well intentioned, but like, ugh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Solid. That's exactly where he is. He's chaotic good, trying very hard to be a lawful good character.
Aw.
But the thing is, his sense of law and like what goes as law in the islands aren't necessarily what goes as law in general society. Where would you think you'd put Rowan?
Lawful neutral?
What do you think about that? Lawful neutral? I think that too. That's also where I would put Rowan. Where would we put Tiny Alf?
Ooh. Oh, Alf.
Neutral evil, maybe?
I don't know, because she is pretty morally driven, but it's like her own morals, not necessarily like society's morals. Like,
Yeah,
where
I would
you're
put
poor.
her lawful neutral.
Lawful neutral. Interesting.
Nah, I'd do chaotic neutral.
Yeah, I'm
Chaotic
chaotic
neutral.
neutral.
So I see Alf here as on a journey going up the middle axis. She's currently at neutral. She started at neutral evil, and she's currently wandering towards true neutral, and she's slowly making her way towards neutral good. I think we'll see the end of her arc in neutral good.
Oh, that would
Aw.
be sweet. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear it when you hear the first episode. I mean, but the 0 episode summary. But she was like stealing from the group and stuff in the first episode and everything.
Oh my god.
She was starting Alfie was really mean. So I think she started neutral evil. Let's see, where would we put Rhaegar?
Oh my god. Just chaotic neutral. Just nothing but impulse.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, I
I was
agree.
That's funny you mentioned that. Shadowy himself has stated that Rhaegar is chaotic evil. And his
Really?
Well, evil doesn't necessarily mean I kill all the babies all the time. You know, evil can just mean selfish. Evil can just mean you don't necessarily think that everyone deserves a fair shot. Evil can mean prejudiced, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, evil doesn't necessarily mean I work for the devil and I high five Satan. Evil can just mean a person with bad intentions. Plus, fun-loving criminal, doesn't that sound exactly like Rhaegar?
The fun loving was 100%.
Yeah.
It was the criminal that threw me off, but like now that you've said it that way.
He's definitely working his way up, Mariah. I agree. He's started on the evil aspect, and he's working his way up. I don't know if he's going... That's the thing, is I don't know if he's going straight up to chaotic good, or if he's going diagonally across.
Oh.
I see him like...
That's interesting.
I see something really dark and like planetary alignment changing happening to him, and him becoming like lawful good.
Damn.
Thinking of
That'd be
like
so good.
Reinhardt in his cinematic for Overwatch. how he
Mhm.
started and how he
Oh.
is now. Yeah. Let's see. Who are we missing? Howie. Where's Howie?
Lawful evil.
Yeah.
Currently? Do you think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah.
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 No, like from the beginning.
Really? Huh. Interesting. I think I think Howie is a I think he's chaotic neutral. He's just a little more he's not as bombastic and prone to outbursts. I think
Mm.
accepting the ring, despite knowing all the dangers, I think is pretty like shows like a general bend towards chaos, and then the ring is slowly making him, whether intentionally or unintentionally, evil. So I'm curious to see where his path goes. But yeah, so these are the alignments. You can kind of see what the different fonts and the different personality types lead to. Um, Go ahead and let me, or start just looking at this. Start thinking about where you want your character to lie. Start thinking about what your character is and how they feel about things, because that's a very important part to a character. Other than his character sheet is who they are, how they feel, and we even have like a whole personality quiz about a character if we want to go through that when we're all done, when all's done and said and done here. But for now, let's go back to the character sheet. So we're done with that top bar there, where it says character name, class, race, alignment, background, all that stuff. Going to the far left now, we have that bar of 6 squares. These are like the building blocks of your character sheet. These 6 abilities, or some people call them stats sometimes, but these 6 abilities kind of define your character's strengths and weaknesses. They are, starting at the top, going to the bottom, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, strength is your character's physical strength and physical ability to do things. It determines how hard you hit, how good you are at hitting things, how much you can lift, how much you can carry, whether or not you can burst that door open in time. Dexterity is your character's agility and flexibility. It determines how good your character can do things like tumble through a crazy, a crumbling house that's on fire and dodge the fire on the way out. It determines how good your character can dodge an arrow. It determines your character's reflexes with how quickly they can react when your party is ambushed. It determines how quickly your character can dodge out of the way when a fireball is thrown in your way. Next up is Constitution. That's your character's health. Not just your hit points, but also just your character's just how hardy and stout they are. Constitution will let you eat poison and not even flinch. A strong Constitution will let you fend off, say like a spell that's trying to control your body. A strong Constitution will determine how many hit points you have and how many hits it takes to take you down. And a strong Constitution also determines how quickly you can heal and recover and stuff like that. One second here. Okay, where are we at? Intelligence. Now, the difference between intelligence and wisdom is one that's often discussed. Just right off the bat, what would y'all say the difference is between intelligence and wisdom? Some guesses.
I mean, from watching Tingles and Dragons, it seems that wisdom is used more magic, like it's used more with magic based things, whereas intelligence is like actual book knowledge intelligence.
Sorry, what was the first one you said? The first one
Sorry,
was
wisdom is like spell based essentially, so it's used for things that deal with magic, whereas intelligence is like actual knowledge book learning.
interesting that you did perceive that based off of watching T&D. So the difference between intelligence and wisdom is that intelligence is what you can learn from books and school and being taught. Wisdom is more an innate sense of uh, your how common your common sense is, or how sensible your common sense is. So
So
intelligence
like
is for
street
things like,
smart.
yeah, street smarts. Intelligence is used for things like investigating a scene to see if you can follow their tracks or if you can see what happened there. Intelligence is used for trying to recall something that happened in history, or for trying to recall something that you read in an old a religious book. Wisdom is used for seeing how keen your eyesight is if you're trying to pick out that one specific detail that might have missed most people's eyes. Um, Wisdom is used for using your survival skills to find local flora and fauna that you can kill and eat to survive in the wild.
Ooh.
Wisdom is used for your innate ability to tell whether or not somebody's lying. So the reason you might think that wisdom is used for magic as opposed to intelligence is used for other things is because depending on the type of magic, it either uses wisdom, intelligence, or charisma. Uh,
Oh.
we'll get into that more as we get into the classes, and you'll be able to see what the different types of magic are and why they use different types of ability points. But for now, that's the major difference between intelligence and wisdom. Charisma is not just how handsome or how pretty you are. It is your character's force of will, your character's force of the sense of self. It's how good they are at lying, how good they are at persuading people. It's how good they are at believing in themselves and fending off the ability to be charmed. It's their ability to perform well if they're a bard. Charisma is most things social. Now, looking at these six ability points, you can see how fundamental they are to everything. Like no matter what your character does, it's gonna tie back to some one of these abilities. And if you look over to the right just a little bit, this box here, I'm gonna highlight it on my screen. These are all your character's skills. Skills are doing something with your ability points, with your abilities, and abilities are just how good you are at those individual abilities. So, say like how I said, strength is used for lifting rocks. You wouldn't actually roll a strength check for that. You'd roll athletics, and athletics, as you can see, uses strength. That's why it says STR after it in that little gray font. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Investigation, for example, uses intelligence, and that's why it has intelligence there. The reason they have little bubbles next to the left of them is because you can fill them in. You can click that bubble. I'm not sure how to do that here. Boop. Nope. Maybe X. Yeah. So you put an X in that circle, and it'll dot it in, and that means that you are trained in that skill. So that means not only do you use your base ability, but you also add how proficient you are just based on your level. So say you are a rogue and you're trying to be agile, you probably already have a pretty good dexterity, which means your acrobatics would already use your dexterity, but if you want to be extra good at it, you train in acrobatics as well, and that way you are using both your dexterity ability, and your proficiency bonus, making you even more double better at that. What is a proficiency bonus, Carlin? That doesn't make any sense. Why didn't you teach that first? I don't know. I'm doing this kind of by the seat of my pants. So proficiency bonus is tied to your level. And that's just basically as your level gets higher and your character gets more and more well-versed with things, the more your proficiency bonus goes higher, which kind of reflects just how good your character is at their specialties.
So ours right now says our proficiency bonus right now has a 2 on it. Is that because we put 1 for our level?
Yes. So at level 1, your proficiency bonus is 2.
How do you determine? Sorry, maybe we're probably gonna go into this later, but I'm gonna ask anyways. Yeah. How do you determine, like, what numbers go on your skills? Like, how do you figure out like what your acrobatics modifier would be?
The good news is you never have to put a number there because it'll be automatically calculated for you.
Nice.
Your acrobatics.
Yay, no math.
So, for example, your acrobatics is going to be your dexterity plus proficiency if you're trained in it. Okay. If you're not trained in it, it'll just be your dexterity. But I think before we move any further, we should figure out the next cluster of things to figure out when making a character, which is your stats, what class you want to be, and what race you want to be. So when making stats, there's usually 2 ways to do it. Depending on your dungeon master, you'll either roll for your stats, and when they say stats, they usually mean abilities. Those words are kind of interchangeable. You'll either roll for your stats or you will buy your stats. Buying your stats is usually a lot more stringent. It's not quite, you usually end up with not quite as powerful characters, but you are promised by buying stats that everybody is on the same playing field. Nobody's going to be more powerful than anybody else just because they rolled better. But across the board, generally speaking, people will be weaker. For example, the way point buy works, you're given a set number of points, and you can boost your individual abilities using those points. But the highest you can go, even if you're to put a maximum of 9 points into it, would be 15.
Oh.
Rolling dice, the highest you can go, which would be rolling 4 6-sided dice, or 4d6. Now, if say you rolled your absolute best, all 4 of these were 6s. You drop the lowest, which would be a 6, and which would mean that the remaining 3 would equal up to 18. 18 is an extremely good stat to have. So you can see how having an 18 as your max versus having a 15 as your max really shows a difference. So I guess the next step would be to explain what the numbers imply. Like, what's a good number and what's a bad number to have in that stat. We'll begin at average. For all creatures, 10 is an absolute average to have. 10 means you're not particularly good at it, you're not particularly bad at it, you don't have any bonuses, you don't have any penalties. 10 is average. When using point buy, as you can see on my screen here on the left, every stat starts at an 8, which means every stat starts at a -1. That sucks.
Yeah.
-1 means literally a -1 to all of your rolls, whereas a +1 is a +1 to all your rolls, so forth and so on. So if you wanted to just get to the point where all stats were at least not a penalty, you'd have already spent 12 of your 27 points. So an actual average person is all 10s. Say you wanted them to be really good at charisma, so you give them as high as you can in charisma. That gives you a 15 and a +2, which is great. +2 to all of your rolls regarding charisma is awesome. However, you would have already spent 19 of your points, and you can see how that can be difficult. So what we're going to do as a team is we're going to go through and make 2 sets of stats. One is going to be using the dice, and one is going to be using the point buy system, just so you become familiar with both styles. Because depending on your DM, you'll probably have to do one or the other. So let's reset this. And starting with Ari, let's go ahead and roll your stats, shall we?
Okay.
So the way you roll your stats in Dungeons & Dragons traditionally is you roll 4d6 like this, and then you drop the lowest dice, and you add up the remaining. So looking at this set here that's currently on my screen, what would your stat be?
$16.
Bingo! Alright, because you dropped the 4, right? And
Yeah,
you add up the remaining. Alright, so that would be your first number. So starting now, we're gonna roll the dice we're gonna roll this set of 46 6 times. Each time I will mark what number we get.
Cool. Go
Good
ahead.
luck. So this is a what would that be? I know, math sucks.
13.
Bingo. And
14.
I want Torchy for the rest, so I'll do the rest for you. This is a 10. This is an 11. You can see I've played D&D for a long time. And this is a 14. So all in all, not too bad. A little bit above average, but I don't know. Most games I'd play in, they'd say that this is probably a little too weak and to roll again. So let's do that. If your roll is too weak, we'll let you roll again. Oh, that's also only 5 numbers. We'll roll one more. Another 10. Okay. Good, not great. Let's try for another set. Oops.
Ooh.
So already starting off, this one's already a little bit better. There you go. That's what you want to see.
Oh,
Spicy.
Nice.
Wow.
Ooh.
Another good one.
Whoa.
Wow.
That is 5 so far. One last one.
Mm-hmm.
14. All right. Looking at those 2 sets, you can clearly see which one's better than the other. All right, just really quick, we're going to go and roll dice for the rest of y'all. Eliza, you ready?
Let's go. Perfect.
Oh no.
oh,
Unstoppable.
I
Not bad, still 10. Still average.
Yeah.
better. 15.
All right.
Next up, an 11. A 13. Ooh, and a 7.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
Beautiful. Put that under dexterity so she can't walk.
God.
Oh wow.
All right, next set. What we got? Starting off strong.
We're killing it.
12. 11.
14. 14.
14 and 18. Hey.
Hey!
Eh,
Ayo.
That 7's sticking around though.
So
I kinda like it.
this second set you see, the second set here, that's kind of like a Jedediah, where like you have the 18 in strength and the 7 in like intelligence or something.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of fun. Get to play with it.
Yeah.
Play against it.
Oh, give me just a second here. I gotta mute for a sec. Be right back. Actually, Izzy, Matrix, and Sanji, do you think you can take this link to this dice roller and roll yourself some dice? And then I can come back in a little bit and you can let me know what 2 sets you rolled?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you just gotta click the D6 a couple of times that because when you first come here, it'll just be the 1d6. So you have to click the d6 3 more times to get 4, and then from there, whenever you roll, it'll roll the 4d6.
We got this.
I know math.
All right, I will be right back.
You guys want to like call out your scores as you roll them so that we can still be entertaining for the
I got a 6.
yeah, that would be
Oh.
fun.
I got a 6.
You got a 6?
Yes.
Oh god.
Oh, Jesus. And
That's a
another
theme.
6. That's lovely.
And another one.
Oh.
I forgot that
Dang
5
it,
is
I got
number.
8 for my first roll. Ah.
We're doing great.
Got a 14. Okay, okay.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, dang. These are the worst numbers I've ever seen in my life.
It's okay. You get to
And
roll
we
again.
don't know math, and
You know
the
what?
worst number.
It's okay because I want my character to be incredibly stupid.
Oh my gosh.
It's okay, guys. Remember, we learned about the Pythagoras theorem. We're good.
And use it nowhere.
Oh
Can
my
somebody
God.
say a squared plus b squared equals c squared?
How did you know? Oh my god, were you listening to us?
Oh my God, so creepy, Jesus.
All right, how's it coming along with those stats?
I got another 6. Jeez.
That's 3. You've gotten 3 6s now.
And that's on my second roll.
Oh my gosh.
All right, when you're ready, let me know and I'll start documenting your stats.
Oh my God, another 6. Jesus.
Your dice hate you.
They do.
Haraya says, so Izzy will be the character that sleeps all the time and just wakes up to beat someone up and go back to sleep.
Of course.
Definitely.
All right. I maths very fast. So I finished both sets.
Nice. What you get, Matrix?
So for the first set, I have
You have.
there we go. Sorry, 15,
Mm-hmm.
13, 12, 10, 13, and 11.
Okay, pretty good. And your next roll?
10, 11, 16, 15, 12, and 15.
All right.
That's not bad.
All right, I'm done. Yes,
All right, who's that?
it's Izzy. What's up?
All right, Izzy, you ready to call out your numbers?
Hell yeah. Ready to get bullied.
See it.
Okay.
Oh no.
12. 6. 6. 15. 15. And 10.
Ooh, yikes.
I know.
And your
And
next
then
set?
for the second one, 12. 14. 6. 6.
Dang.
12. And 8.
Nice.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Wow.
Sanji, you just about ready?
Okay. Yep. So I got so I got 8, 14, 11, 13, 12, and 15.
Okay.
Then I got 13, 12, 15, 17, 18,
Nice.
and 10.
Really good set.
Yeah.
All right, so looking at this, there's a way to figure out whether or not a set of stats is quote unquote playable. Like basically, if you compare the pluses to the minuses, and if it's not above a certain number, you say that's pretty much unplayable. So let's have you roll again. I'm gonna go ahead and say that both of Izzy's sets are unplayable.
Okay, but it's about I kind of want to use them.
What was that?
It's about I kind of want to use one of them. Like,
No, absolutely. If you want to play
actually?
it, I mean, it's not, for some people it's all about the stats. For some people it's the stats make the character and flaws can be fun.
I want my character to be stupid. Jesus. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well then, whether or not you are happy with your stats, fear not, for there's one more factor that can affect your stats, and that is your character's race. Now, this is kind of where you want to start thinking about what class you want to be. Different classes require different stats, and you want to kind of have better stats for certain classes. Some classes kind of I don't want to get all min-maxy here and say that you have to have really high stats to play certain classes, but they certainly work better with higher stats. Now that having been said, play who you want to play. Don't let your stats determine anything. And let your stats be more of like a guideline as opposed to a straight up limiter. But for now, what I'm going to do is I want to do a brief overview of the different classes so you can start getting a feel of what you want to go for. I'll let you know what each class is good for. If you have any questions for each of the classes, feel free to speak up. But until then, if you all are ready, I'll go ahead and jump into the classes now.
Let's go.
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right. So the base classes that come with Dungeons and Dragons are Barbarian. Barbarians tend to use strength. They tend to be, you think Vikings, you think Jedediah. They have bonuses if they don't wear actual armor because they're just so fast and so strong and so meaty. As you can see here, their hit dice is 12, which is highest among all classes, which means that they tend to have the most hit points. And their main thing is that they go into a kind of primal rage, which lets them focus only on battle and kind of ignore some damage while they just go ham and beat the crap out of the bad guy. Barbarian does not have any magic whatsoever, and is all just about that pure carnal primal spirit. Next up is the Bard. The Bard is a little bit of a jack of all trades. They can do a little bit of everything. They can do a little bit of sneaking. They can do a little bit of magic. They're particularly good at being persuasive and charisma-based skills and checks. They have decent hit points. They have a D8, so that's a maximum of 8, whereas opposed to the Barbarian is a maximum of 12. So they can do a little bit of fighting. They can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They're mostly known as support classes, which is to say that they can usually be used to help heal, also do a little bit of fighting. The cool thing about a Bard is that they're so good at everything is that you can specialize them however you like. In terms of Bard specific powers, they use magic based off of their charisma skill, and they can use their music to kind of inspire their friends to do better and to get bonuses to their rolls.
That's so wholesome.
It really is.
Yeah.
Bards have a kind of like the meme with bards is that they're always trying to hump everything.
Someone's gotta.
Like no matter like you coming up whether you're fighting a gremlin, a half ogre, a dragon, a giant frog monster, for some reason the bard's always trying to hump it.
Roll to seduce.
Clerics are also, I mean, you see this guy here and he's like in thick armor, and he's got a big old hammer, and he's looking super holy warrior for Jesus, but that's just one take of cleric. Clerics are basically champions of a god, and there's gods of all different types in Dungeons and Dragons. So even though this guy looks like your typical soldier for Jesus type, there's gods of nature, there's gods of death, gods of trickery, excuse me, gods of stealth, gods of knowledge, gods of war, gods of the forge. Their main thing as clerics is that they have divine energy, divine powers that uses their wisdom. They have decent hit points, which is a D8, so they can, survive in the front lines for a little while. They tend to be known as the healer class because they have the most healing spells available to them, but they certainly don't have to be, depending on how you specialize them. They also have, depending on their god, different powers that they can use on a daily basis for different magical abilities. Like, for example, if they are a cleric of the forge, they have the ability to make a weapon magical for a day, or a weapon or a piece of armor magical, which will give its wielder a bonus for that entire day. There's a lot of different options with a cleric because there's a lot of different gods. Next up, we have the druid. Good old Rowan. Druids are spellcasters with a special affinity for nature. Their spell list is unique to them. The spells in general, they tend to be not as powerful as wizard spells, but they tend to have more effects and natural kind of like side effects to them. They do really good at kind of controlling the battlefield. Like they can turn an entire battlefield into like spiky thorns so that the bad guys can't pass through. They also have the ability of befriending and turning into wild creatures, which starts off as, I turn into a wolf, and later on I turn into an elephant, which later on turns into I turn into a Tyrannosaurus Rex as they get stronger and stronger. You can focus a druid in a lot of different ways. You can focus them as a spellcaster. You can focus them as someone who's constantly in their wild shape animal form. Or you can focus them even as a fighter. someone who protects themselves and wields themselves with natural weapons and fights along that way. Next up is your bread and butter, good old classic Dungeons and Dragons fighter. A fighter is someone who specializes in martial combat. Usually that means some kind of sword or axe or club, but it can just as easily be a bow and arrow specialized archer. The cool thing about fighter is that they're very customizable for combat, and they're made specifically for killing and shanking and slicing, but they don't have a lot of utility outside of that. They don't have a lot of skills. They're not very charismatic, but when it comes to wielding a weapon and dealing damage, they're one of the best at it. Next up is the monk. Monk is a master of martial arts, just as it says. They have a lot of different abilities that are tied to their ki. They can use their ki to either hit multiple times, or to heal themselves, or to kind of like see outside their body in kind of like a spiritual way. They have a lot of cool ways to channel their chi energy into letting them do superhuman things, like climb up sheer surfaces and things like that. They are all about peace and tranquility, but they come in all sorts too. Like a really good thief could be a monk, just like a ninja could be a monk. Just like certain types of pirates can be monks. Moving on, we have the paladin. Paladin is kind of like a mix between cleric and fighter, in that they are kind of a more combat-focused cleric and a more spell-focused fighter. Paladins are interesting and unique because they are tied to what is known as oaths, and they basically make an oath, and through those oaths they have to live by those rules, but also are given powers. Like, they're given these auras, where so long as you are close to your paladin, you get the benefits of being close to your paladin. Like, you are immune to being made afraid, or you are bolstered in combat and you receive bonuses, or you get a constant sense of healing, and you heal hit points whenever you're near your paladin, depending on how they specialize. They also have the ability to summon a steed, which is nice. They can summon like a little horsey horse or whatever they want to ride. Next up, we have the ranger. Now, if you look here real quick, you'll see that the fighter, paladin, and ranger all have D10 as their hit die. That means they have a lot of hit points, and they're really kind of made for combat. The ranger's specialty lies in nature and tracking. They're really good at surviving in the wilderness, tracking enemies you're trying to find. They tend to fight with either two weapons or a bow and arrow, or maybe both. And they're a little more stealthy and sneaky than their fighter or paladin counterparts, but not as stealthy and sneaky as the rogue, who is up next. The stealthy and sneaky is their bread and butter. They usually have the ability to do things like pick locks, pick pockets. They have the most skills in the game, which means that they are really good at doing all the different things on your skill list. Looking at our character sheet here, they have the longest list of skills they can train, as well as the most amount of skills they can train. And they can also choose certain skills to train twice in. So they would use their proficiency bonus 2 times, meaning their bonus to that would be exceptionally high, which is how you got Alfie being super swole in one of the most recent T&D episodes. Like, it's not that she's like physically super buff, it's that she's really trained at using her tiny body to exert strength. So she's just kind of like used to using her smallness to her advantage. Next up, we have the sorcerer. Now, the sorcerer and the wizard both use what is known as arcane magic. It's a huge list of magic spells. They range anywhere from huge fireballs to protective walls of force. They can be, like mansions full of invisible servants that give you delicious food, or they can be um, like sprays of prismatic color that, uh, depending on what color hits you, either blind you or turn you to stone or burn you. Uh, there's a huge list of magic spells. It's ever growing, and people are always adding to it. And usually the trade-off is that you can cast spells, but you tend to be physically weak, and you need to be protected. I try to describe the wizard and warlock, wizard and sorcerer at the same time because, in a lot of ways, they're two sides of the same coin. They both pull from the same spell list, but a sorcerer's magic is innate. It's usually given to them as a gift from some kind of celestial being or something in their bloodline. Maybe their ancient ancestor was a dragon or something, or their ancient ancestor, maybe like some angel came down from heaven and humped their farmer mom and gave birth to them, and that's how they have magic abilities. However you want to look at it, they have magic innately in their bloodline, and that lets them use a lot of magic, but they don't know as much of it. So their spell list is short, but their ability to cast spells is greater. And they can also do things called meta magic. Meta magic lets you choose a spell and be like, I like that spell, and I'm going to pump extra energy into it so that it does extra damage. Or I'm going to pump extra energy into it so that it affects a greater area. Or I'm going to pump extra energy into it so that I can shoot it from even farther away. They have the ability to kind of change and manipulate their magic because it comes innately to them. A wizard is someone who studies magic. They approach magic from a more scholarly approach. Jesus. And they thus have access to a lot more spells. They're not quite as fancy with it as sorcerers, but usually their ability to cast spells is a lot longer, and they have a lot more spells to choose from. So a wizard knows a lot more spells, but can't cast as many, and they use their intelligence to cast. A sorcerer doesn't know as many spells, but can cast them more often, and they use their charisma to cast their spells. In between the two of them is a warlock, and they're kind of neither here nor there when it comes to casting. They also use their charisma, which is to say their sense of force, but their magic is specifically given to them by an extraplanar entity. That means they didn't inherit their magic through their bloodline. It means like they made a deal with a devil, or they made a deal with an angel, or they made a deal with like a Cthulhu-esque outer planetary interdimensional weird god thing, or they made a deal with a fairy god like Oberon or Titania. Wherever it is and however they did it, their power comes from an external force. That's why Howie, for example, can now cast spells, because Sorthrodon is giving him power. It has made him a warlock. There's also warlocks that can gain their powers from like possessed weapons, like weapons that have entities. Warlocks are, their powers can come from all sorts of places. They also have a really short list of spells, even shorter than the sorcerer. But by working with their extraplanar deity, whatever source their power is, it gives them a lot of different powers and ways to kind of gives them a lot of abilities to choose from. All right, and that brings us to the end of the core character classes. There's two more. I'll go over them really briefly. Artificer is kind of new. Artificer is, think like steampunk inventioner, gadgeteer type person. They have a lot of different inventions. They have a lot of different like little sentry robots and wacky guns and gadgets and gizmos, and they tinker with things so that they can like make, instead of saying you have a +1 sword, it'll be like a in magical steam sword that functions essentially like a +1 sword, only instead of using magic it uses steam energy or whatever. The Blood Hunter is something from Critical Role that I don't know a lot about. I know they're supposed to be fighters and they kind of use their blood to empower their abilities to fight bad guys, I think. Yeah. It says a fanatical slayer that embraces dark knowledge to destroy evil. Okay, so it kind of sounds like Illidan from World of Warcraft.
Mm.
Like a good guy who goes super emo to fight all the bad guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So now that we've gone through all these different classes, start thinking about what class you want to be and where you want to put those stats in. So now that we have kind of gone through all of that, has anybody decided on what class they want to go for?
Cleric. Eliza,
Cleric for Eliza.
I'm a sorcerer.
Who's that?
Me, Ari.
Okay, I don't mean just you say me doesn't mean I'm gonna know who you are.
That's why I said my name. Hello. It's me, Ari. Hello. Oh my god.
Anybody else?
I genuinely. Oh,
Oh, go
you
ahead.
sis. No, I'm not even decided yet. You
Okay.
go, sis.
Well, I'm looking at the bard. I'm gonna be a bard.
All right, who's I?
Is Misanji.
Sanji gonna be a bard. All right. Matrix and Izzy, what you thinking?
Okay, so like barbarian's like the common knowledge choice, right? But okay. That's too easy, okay? I want to do something where I'm gonna be terrible at it.
Oh my god.
I just, you know.
Why? Like why?
Why not? I mean, seriously.
Legit. That's a good question. Why not, right? So that depends on what you're doing. And this is where you want to go a little meta and get to know your group beforehand. You want to know what the purpose of this game is. Are you going to be playing a serious game with a lot of role play? Are you going to be playing a serious game with a lot of combat? Are you going to be playing a goof around game where everybody's like the wackiest, craziest character they can and you're going for comedy? It's good to know what your group is going for so that you can make something that fits the mold. Because Dungeons and Dragons is essentially a cooperative improvisation game, you want to make sure your character is always saying yes and providing more information. You don't want to make a character that goes against improv and makes it more difficult for everybody else. Something that might be funny for you or that you might think might be hilarious might be a bad fit for the group and could stop improvisation cold and can be a real pain for other players and whatnot. So because we're just making characters for character's sake, you can make whoever you like. But this is a good point to consider when you're actually making Dungeon & Dragon characters for a game, is trying to get a feel for the DM and the rest of the group for what kind of character to make, what kind of game they want to play. Make sure that it's a good fit for you, and make sure that your character is a good fit for the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got you. Big brain. I guess I'm gonna go with a barbarian then.
Who's that?
Just Izzy. Me.
All right. Barbarian. And Matrix?
I'm torn between Rogue and Ranger. Both are pretty stealthy, but I think I'm gonna go Rogue. So.
All right. Do you have any questions about the two? Maybe I can help. I can help you figure out the differences and help you figure out what it is that you might want to be able to do with them.
Yeah, please. Like I said, I mainly just want to be stealthy and sneaky, but I do like the idea of having like a nature aspect. so that's why I'm kind of torn.
Rangers certainly can be stealthy and sneaky, but they have to specialize that way. Because they're focused on combat, that means that they're not as good at skills as a rogue will be. Um, Rogues are certainly a lot more sneaky and stealthy. They're not necessarily nature-based, but you can make them that way. Um, the cool thing about a ranger is that you're going to have more hit points, you're going to be better at fighting, and you're going to have that strong nature side, which gives you a little bit of nature magic as well. The cool thing about a rogue is that you can do sneaky things. You can like unlock locks. You can you can like sabotage devices. You can disarm traps. And the cool special ability of the rogue is that they have the ability to, if they sneak up on somebody or they catch somebody unawares, they do a thing called a sneak attack, which adds like a ton more damage to the attack.
Yeah, I like rogue. I'm going rogue.
Rogue it is. All right. Okay, so this is something where you're going to have to make notes for yourself. I'm going to go through the different classes you chose, and I'm going to say which kind of stats you want to have as your peak stats. So Ari is a sorcerer. Your main stat is going to be charisma, so you want that to be your highest thing. Beyond that, it's kind of up to you. If you want to be in combat, I would suggest having a decent dexterity and constitution. If you want to be hiding in the back, maybe you want to add stuff to your intelligence and stuff so you can be good at investigating and be smart and have some kind of utility to the class in that sense. Eliza Lynn is a cleric. Your main casting ability is going to be your wisdom, so you want to have that as your highest. If you want to be in the front line fighting, I suggest having like a good strength and constitution. If you want to be using like a bow and arrow from the back, I would suggest dexterity. Depends on how you want to play it. Izzy as a barbarian. This is pretty straightforward. You want to have high strength, high dexterity, and high constitution. That's your bread and butter. The rest of it, to hell with it, right? You don't need intelligence or wisdom or charisma. You just blow everything up.
Exactly.
Why do I need to persuade you to do something when I can just hit you until you do something?
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Matrix, as a rogue, you want your highest ability to be your dexterity. A decent, like, depending on whether you want to be more of like a sneaky detective type rogue, you might want to have intelligence for figuring things out and for manipulating situations. You might want to have good charisma if you're the type of rogue who's more of a liar and the type to like be a spy and try and get into places. If you're going to be a combat-based rogue, you want to have high dexterity, a decent strength and constitution so you can survive on the front lines for a little bit. And Sanji, as a bard, your highest stat is you want to be your charisma. It's going to be used for not only persuading people and performing, but also your magic. After that, it depends on how you want to specialize. Because bards can specialize in many different ways. You can be more of like a thinker, backline bard, or you can be more of like a fighter, kind of Han Solo-y type bard with like either a crossbow or like a little rapier or something. Up to you how you want to build it. But those are the kind of stats you want to build for. So with that in mind, keeping in mind what you want your stats to be, next we're going to delve into the long list of races. There's a lot of different races in Dungeons & Dragons, as you can see. And each of them have bonuses to different ability points.
Jeez.
Now, first things first, when you're making characters, you want to ask your DM what races are available. Not every DM makes every race available because maybe certain races just don't make sense in their world or just never existed in their world. And that's fine. Just make sure that you and the DM are clear on what is and isn't allowed in that DM's particular game. But I'm going to try and go through this list of races relatively quickly. I'll try my best not to be racist, and hopefully I don't offend anybody who takes this kind of stuff too seriously.
Already.
Dragonborn. They're like dragon people. They're like a human plus a dragon, dragonborn. They get a plus to strength, a plus to charisma. They get draconic ancestry, which means they have dragon stuff in their blood. They have a breath weapon they can use once per rest. Like they can literally like shoot fire from their mouth. It doesn't do tons of damage, but it's pretty cool and it's good to have in a pinch. Dwarves. Dwarves are strong, sturdy, stout. They're smaller, so they don't move as fast, but they are really strong, and they have a bonus to Constitution. They have Dark Vision, which lets them see in the dark. They have they're really resilient. They're good at knowing the way stone works, and they're great architects. And they can use special dwarven weapons, which are awesome and badass. Elves are super long living and high and mighty and ooh, so fancy living in the woods. They have bonuses to dexterity and they also have dark vision. They have keen senses. They have fairy ancestry in their lives, and they have this thing called trance. An elf doesn't sleep for your typical 8 hours like most other races do. Instead, they go into a trance for 4 hours, meaning so long as they get their 4 hours of rest, they can be up for watch for the remaining hours. Gnomes. Gnomes are small people, kind of like halflings. They get a bonus to intelligence and gnome cunning. They're kind of natural tinkers and inventors. They have dark vision because they tend to live in caves and the deep dark. And they're really intelligent, little tiny inventor folk. Half-elves are a mix between elves and humans. They get a bonus to charisma, as well as a +1 to any 2 other ability scores of their choice. They have dark vision, they have the fairy ancestry that the elves do, and they tend to be pretty good diplomats because people tend to like them, and they're pretty generally good looking. Halflings, also small. Think of the hobbits. They have a bonus to dexterity. They're lucky, which means that anytime they roll a 1, they get to re-roll it 1 time. They're brave. They have halfling nimbleness, which means they can share the same spot as somebody larger than them. And they're little sneaky, awesome dudes and dudettes. Next up is the half-orc, just like Rhaegar. Bonus to strength, bonus to constitution, dark vision. They're menacing. They when they get knocked down, they have a chance to come back up because they're just so crazy strong like that. Their attacks are really powerful and do lots of damage, and they're just bred for war. Humans are basic all around, your average type of character. They get a +1 to all ability scores, or as a variant, they get +1 to 2 ability scores, and they get to choose some additional customization options. And last but not least, the Tiefling or Tiefling. That is kind of a cross between a human and a demonic race. They get a bonus to charisma, a bonus to intelligence, dark vision. They tend to have hellish resistance, which means like a resistance to fire and stuff like that. And they have demon stuff in their bloodlines. Gives them different bonuses. The Orc of Exandria is just a variation of the Orc for Critical Role. Looking at all these different races, oh, there's so many. The Aarakocra. They're a bird people. They literally get flight. They get +2 to dexterity, +1 wisdom, and they get talons. But they also, I think, have like something like weak bones. So like they have the ability to fly, but maybe they're a little more brittle. Oh, excuse me, just a second. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Anyone? Oh, Rihanna. Damn it. Sorry, Ree put some interesting information in chat if you guys didn't see it, that halflings are literally hobbits, and Tolkien tried to sue over the namesake, so they changed the name, but literally everything else is the same. Halflings are just hobbits.
Whoa.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
What happened? What are we wowing about?
Oh, that Tolkien sued over hobbits, so they changed it to halflings.
Oh, nice. All right, where was I? Urakokra, flying eagle people. Genasi. Genasi are people who are tied to the elements. So there's different Genasi based on air, earth, fire, and water. And they all get a bonus to Constitution. And different bonuses based on which element you choose. The Goliath. Goliaths are big, strong, super tall, super powerful mountain rock people. Bonus to strength, bonus to Constitution. Natural athletes. They get bonuses with lifting things. They can lift more than most people can. They can survive at super high altitudes. Aasimar. So just like the tieflings or tieflings are tied to demonic heritage, the Aasimar are tied to celestial heritage. That means that their blood is mixed with like the stuff of angels and whatnot. They get different abilities based on that. A bonus to charisma, dark vision, then different abilities based on what type of celestial background they have. Bugbears are a monstrous race. They are pretty good at being sneaky. They're kind of like the sneakier, lankier versions of orcs. They also have long limbs, which let them attack from farther away. And they can do sneak attacks like rogues. Furbolg, Sage Woodland is a Furbolg. They're kind of like a naturey, good-natured tree people, I guess. Bonus to wisdom, bonus to strength. They get some innate magic. They get some innate ability to like sneak around the woods. They're powerful because they're large, and they can speak to animals, I believe. Goblins, little feisty, goblin-y, fight guys. +2 to dexterity, +1 to constitution. They get the fury of the small because they're so tiny and angry and furious. And they have dark vision and they have the ability to escape well. Hobgoblins are kind of like a bigger, broodier, beefier version of goblins. +2 to constitution, +1 to intelligence because they're cunning. Dark vision, they're trained in combat. And I'm not sure what saving face is. Kenku. Nanali is a Kenku. They're like the crow people. +2 to dexterity, +1 to wisdom. They're excellent forgers, and they don't have a language of their own, but they speak entirely via mimicry. Next up, we have the kobolds. They're like little dog/lizard people. +2 to dexterity, -2 to strength. Dark vision. They have a bunch of different abilities based on working in packs and working together with each other. And they're sensitive to sunlight. Lizard folk are lizard people, giant lizard people. Alex Jones, +2 to constitution, +1 to wisdom, bite, cunning artisan. They get the ability to they get a bunch of like amphibious type of lizard powers. Orc is like a full-blooded orc. They get even more strength, but they get a -2 to intelligence, and a couple of other different abilities that make them just even more brutish and strong, like the half-orcs. Tabaxi, Valrim Dren. Tabaxis are cat people. +2 to dexterity, +1 to charisma, dark vision as well, and a lot of different cat-related abilities. Tritons are fish people. They get bonuses in the water and bonuses to talking to fish, controlling fish, being emissaries of the deeps. +1 is strength, constitution, and charisma. Yuan-Ti pureblood, those are snake people. They get a bonus to charisma, +1 to intelligence, dark vision. They get innate magical abilities. They're immune to poison, and they're snake people. Next up, you have the Tortle. which is literally a giant turtle. They have the ability to use their shells as armor. +2 strength, +1 wisdom. They can fight with their claws. And they have their shell as a natural defense. They tend to be slower, though, than most people. Let's see. Changelings, they can literally shapeshift. Like once per day, I think, or once per week or something. Kalashtar are kind of like a variation on the angel people. Orc of Ebron's just a different version of orc. Shifters are kind of people that are naturally druids. They can do a lot of like shifting into different shapes and forms. And Warforged are robots. Beep boop ba-doop. They're usually made from wood and metal, and like their flesh is this stuff called living wood or heartwood that like kind of like pulses but is wood.
Okay.
Oh, there's so many still. I'm gonna go faster. So, Gith, psychic people, centaur, horse person, Loxodon, elephant person, minotaur, bull person, Simic hybrid, don't know what that is. Vidalkin is like a psychic person. Verdon, don't know what that is. Lokatha is fish person. Grung is like super fish / frog person. Whew.
Oh.
Now we have access to all the information on all these people, but just with that quick flyover, and just for the sake of making characters for today, what race do y'all want to be? Starting with Ari, or whoever has already made their mind up. Keeping in mind that different races get different bonuses to different statistics, so depends on how you want to think about it. Either you choose a race based off what you think would be interesting for your character or fun to play, or maybe you choose a race based off of what bonuses they get so that you can be even more efficient at what you do.
Eliza is going to go for the Aasimar.
All right, angel people. So make note of this somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Aasimar. We'll go and look at their specific abilities. Your charisma score increases by 2. Most Aasimar tend to be good, so you'd probably be somewhere in the good in the alignment spectrum. Your base walking speed is 30 feet, which is normal. Your size is medium, which is normal. You have dark vision, which means you get to see up to 60 feet in darkness.
Ooh.
Celestial resistance, you want to make note of this. You have resistance to necrotic damage and radiant damage. And resistance means you only take half damage of that type. Here's another ability you want to make note of somewhere on your character sheet. You have the ability called Healing Hands. Once per long rest, you can touch a creature and cause it to regain a number of hit points equal to your level. So at level 1, you can heal somebody for 1 hit point. Which doesn't sound like a lot unless they had 0 and they were dying, at which point you saved their life.
Nice.
You also know the cantrip called Light, which means at any time you can cast light upon any one thing. You can only have it going on one thing at a time, though.
Okay.
Like, think Alohomora. You can also speak, read, and write Celestial.
Ooh.
All right, now, as if that wasn't difficult enough as is, there are different versions of Aasimar.
Lovely.
There's an Aasimar who's kind of like a fallen angel, which is like a dark Aasimar. There's Protector Aasimars, which are like angel people who are all about protecting people. And there's the Scourge Aasimar, which is kind of like a ASMR that is really passionate and kind of on the verge of becoming evil, but they're so wrathful? Do any of these sound appealing to you, knowing that you have to choose one of them?
The Protector.
All right. So the difference between the additional things the Protector gets is they get a bonus of 1 to Wisdom.
Nice.
And starting at 3rd level, you get something that doesn't matter right now, but you can use it later on.
Cool.
It looks like... Oh. You get the ability to fly at 3rd level. That's cool.
Whoa, cool.
You spread wings and you can fly around as an ASMR.
Oh, shit. I mean, oh, heck.
Oh, dang. Eliza Lynn has settled on Protector ASMR. Congratulations. Anybody else?
Okay.
All right, I've decided. It's Izzy, by the way.
Hi, Izzy.
I'm gonna be a goblin.
Goblin. All right, let's go with the Goblin and figure out what they get. All right, please write this down. You get a +2 to Dexterity and a +1 to Constitution.
Yeehaw.
They are typically neutral evil, or somewhere on the evil spectrum, or maybe neutral spectrum. You are small. You range from 3 to 4 feet and weigh between 40 to 80 pounds.
That's fun.
Your walking speed is still 30, though, which is nice. It means you're pretty quick. You have dark vision of 60 feet. And you have an ability called Fury of the Small, which means when you damage a creature with an attack or spell and the creature size is larger than yours, you can cause the attack to deal extra damage to the creature. Nice. So anytime you attack something larger than you, you do extra damage equal to whatever your level is. So right now it would be +1.
Extra damage to big people.
Yeah. This one's really nice. You have something called Nimble Escape. That means, as a bonus action on any of your turns, you can either hide or disengage. Now, what disengage is, we'll go into combat in a different session, but what disengage is it lets you move away from an enemy without them getting a chance to hit you. So, being able to do that as a bonus action whenever you want, not bad. It's a pretty cool ability. And you can also speak, read, and write Goblin.
You know? I enjoy this very much. It's gonna be great.
Alright, who's next? Anybody else decide in a race? Or want to go over a race, maybe? Or maybe want to do a deeper dive into a race?
Hi, Matrix. I want to do Triton.
Fish people. Alright, let's see what the Tritons get. Please make note of this somewhere. Titans get a +1 to the following abilities: Strength, Constitution, and Charisma. They are medium. They have a... Oh, not only do they walk at 30 feet, but they also have a swimming speed of 30 feet. They swim as fast as they walk.
Ooh.
You can breathe air and water. At level 3, you can cast different kind of watery spells. As of right now, you can cast a spell called Fog Cloud, which pulls up a cloud of fog. Usually used for like obscuring things. You have an ability called Emissary of the Sea, which means that aquatic beasts have an extraordinary affinity with your people. You can communicate simple ideas with beasts that can breathe water. They can understand the meaning of your words, though you have no special ability to understand them in return. Also, because you are a Triton, You have resistance to cold damage, and you can survive even in the deepest of underwater environments with no negative drawbacks. And as for languages, you can speak, read, and write Primordial.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Sounds fancy.
All right, I like.
I like it too. All right, Ari and Sanji.
Um,
Sanji, do you have one?
unless you have one, you can go ahead.
If you want to
Okay.
if you want to know more about a race, or maybe you wanted to go over certain races a little deeper, we can do that.
Yeah, I may go. So me, Ari, I think I may go for Genesee.
All right, let's look at the Genasi. There's different
Yeah.
types of Genasi based on the different elements. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
which one were you looking at?
I'm looking at air.
Okay. Let me see if there's a base Genasi. No, okay, so Air Genasi, you get a +1 to dexterity. They have unending breath, which means so long as you're not incapacitated, you can hold your breath indefinitely. Sounds kind of cool. And once per long rest, you can cast the spell Levitate. Wingardium Leviosa. I didn't go through a lot of the fluff, a lot of like the description of the characters and whatnot, but while we're here, Air Genasi typically have light blue skin, hair, and eyes. A faint but constant breeze accompanies them, tussling the hair and stirring the clothing. Some Air Genasi speak with breathy voices, marked by a faint echo. A few display odd patterns in their flesh or grow crystals from their scalps.
Ooh.
Oh, also as a Genasi, just every Genasi gets this, you get a bonus 2 to Constitution. You can speak, read, and write Primordial as a language. And you tend to be aligned somewhere along the neutral range.
See, that's not me.
Oops. No, it is not. And Sanji, what about you?
I'm thinking to do a half elf.
Half-elf. The half-elf is really nice. Different variations, right? Yeah. Alright, well, first let's look at what half-elves get in general. Please make note of this somewhere. You get a +2 to your charisma, and you get a +1 to any other 2 ability scores of your choice. You usually live to be about 100, exceeding 180 years. Your medium base walking speed is 30. You have dark vision up to 60 feet. You have fairy blood, which means you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and you can't be put to sleep magically. You gain skill versatility, which means you get to choose any 2 skills of your choice and you can be trained in it. You get your proficiency in it, basically. And you can speak, write, and read. Oh my god. Speak, read, and write Elvish. Speak, write, and read.
You got this. It's okay.
Now, looking at uh, half elves, looks like you also get to choose which variation of half elf you are, because there's different types of elves. There's the wood elf, which is more like kind of like a not feral. Elves are rarely feral, but more like a druidic kind of barbaric type of elf. There's the high elf, which is kind of like a more magic, more attuned to nature type of elf. There's the drow, which tend to live in caves and they have dark skin and they tend to be evil. And there's the aquatic elf. So of those different types, aquatic, drow, high, and wood, which elf would you like to be a variant of?
I think I would like to be a high half elf. English.
High half elf. As a high half elf. Oh, interesting. You can choose to drop your skill versatility, which lets you train in any two skills, and instead gain training in elven weaponry, which tend to be better than basic weaponry.
Oh, interesting.
All right, 2 hours in. We are just about done, but we've got a couple more things to do. Let's take a quick little break, quick little 10-minute break, maybe. Just hang out, and afterwards we'll jump back into it and just finish it up. We just got a couple last choices to make before we're done. But for now, let's all take a little. Feel free to step away, grab something to drink, use the bathroom if you need to. I'll be here answering questions from the chat.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
How you doing, chat? You guys doing all right? So the snake peeps, are they immune to all poisons? I believe so. Unless, the DM can always say at the end of the day, DMs get whatever say they want. So it could be like, oh, this is a special poison made specifically for snake people or something. How long did it take you to learn how to play D&D? I've been playing on and off since I was a child, since childhood. Each edition has a little variation on the same rules, but it's just kind of stuff you just learn as you go. I would say one can learn D&D, like the basics of it in their very first session. It's one of those ones where you can never stop learning. There's always new stuff to learn, but picking it up is easy. Ariadne Audio is rolling up a new character. Nice. Kimberly asked, this is probably skipping ahead, but with Izzy's character, would she get extra damage if she rages too? Is that possible? Yeah, absolutely. So if you rage and you attack something larger than you, you get that bonus damage and the bonus rage damage. Do barbarians have any distinct weaknesses? They tend to be weak against magic. Their rage gives them protection against physical damage, but not against magical or poison or elemental damage of any type. And as we saw with Jedediah, as great as barbarians are to have around on your side, you hate to have them on the enemy's side, and they're very prone to charm. Royal wants to know, can you play the race of a monster as a character in a way? Because I wanted to play a Null once, and the group was not happy. Well, as you saw, a lot of the races we went over were monster races. There's a lot of books nowadays that have incorporated monster races as choices. So like orcs, goblins, even tritons. These are normally races that were not originally accessible, but they've been added on through the years. It really depends on the DM and how well it fits in the group. As always, you shouldn't try and when you're playing D&D, don't just think about your character and how cool it'll be to play them. You got to think of them as a function of a bigger unit, and the group as a whole needs to work well together. Sparrow asks, who has been your favorite character to play? Are there any races or class combinations that you like playing in particular? I recently played a gnome inventor architect. He was really a wizard, but he was kind of like an Indiana Jones type. Goes through ruins and then takes all the artifacts and then sells them back. And then it was kind of like a not really shady, but always like the kind of character who's always trying to get a good deal and wouldn't make a deal unless it was definitely in his benefit. That was kind of fun to play. In terms of favorite character to play, I always love playing Jed. Jed's always... There's a reason I keep going back to him. It's because he's a lot of fun and really easy to play. Carly French says, could half-elves be made into fighter types, or do they have to be healer types? They can definitely be fighter types. Their bonuses are to charisma, but they also get a +1 to any other 2 ability points they want. So that can be strength and constitution, or dexterity and constitution, depending on what kind of fighter you want to be. Any class can be any race, and any race can be any class. It's just a matter of what is most efficient, Classes that get, races that get bonuses to intelligence and wisdom can still be fighters, and they still have fighters in their community. They're just not as efficient as fighters from races that tend to have bonuses to strength or constitution. Follow-up barbarian question, can you specialize them to not be susceptible to charm? Kind of. There's a variation on the barbarian that gets resistance to all damage except for psychic. So that means they're now resistant to fireballs and lightning bolts and poisons and stuff. And there's also a version of the barbarian that is like a little... They get advantage against saving throws versus charm, so they're a little harder to charm. But that's kind of like one of the only benefits they get if they specialize that way. Do you have a favorite character you've ever played? Yeah, Jedediah. I've played him multiple times and I love him so much. Mariah asks, so is it better not to have 2 of the same character type in one team? I don't know if it's better. Yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and say that, yeah, it tends to be better. Though you can really make it work. It really depends on how you and the team make it work. If you have multiple archers, that can be really useful, or multiple sneaky people so they can kind of support each other. But for the most part, you kind of want to have all bases covered. You want to kind of have a little bit of everything in your party so that every time you come across an encounter, you have a lot of different skill sets to pull from. When did I start the 10-minute break? Are we done? Are we good to go? Hello? My voice seems so low.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
My voice seems like quieter than usual. Here, let me try and turn it up. How's this? Is this better? Do I sound louder? I hope. At
Sounds
least
good.
Yeah, sounds good.
people on the stream, let me know if that's not too late. Let's see. Last minute questions. Is it too loud? Should I turn it down? Okay, looks like it's too loud.
I think you're usually pretty quiet on stream though, so most of us have our volume up all the way when listening.
Yeah, yeah, same.
Yeah.
So rather than you adjusting your volume, stream might need to adjust their volumes.
I turned it down significantly. Let's see, these last questions were, was there any inspiration for Jed? I guess just like your typical, stereotypical gentle giant, heart of gold, big and dumb, but has good intentions. No real singular source of inspiration, I think. What class do I find the hardest to play? Oh, I tend to shy away from spellcasters, especially ones with huge lists of spells, just because there's so many options, and I usually don't do well with tons of options and having to learn huge lists of spells and whatnot. Do you have a dice collection, or do you stick to random number generators? I used to have a huge dice collection, and I gave it all away. And I was just playing online for a long time, and now, actually just today, I got my dice, and they look really, really cool, and we're going to be using them tomorrow for T&D.
Ooh. Ooh.
Who is stronger, Rhaegar or Jed? I think they both have a strength of 20. Let's see. Alright, taking a look at your different character sheets. Alright. Let's go ahead and start filling it out. Start filling out your race, your alignment if you want, and let's start divvying up where you want your stats to be. I see that Izzy's already done that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was wondering really quick. You
Mhm.
said I had like +2 dexterity and +1 constitution. Would I just put it like on the top part right there?
No, it actually goes to the base number.
Oh, okay.
What if we get additions for class and race?
Then they... Wait, what would your addition for class be?
I think cleric. Oh god, hold on, I gotta pull up the book again.
Clerics, they want to have a good wisdom, but they don't have a bonus to wisdom or anything.
Nah, I'm thinking of something else. Okay.
So at this point, let's go ahead and fill in as much of that top portion as you can, and let's put your stats to your stats. Let's apply those stats you rolled to the stats on your character sheet. And let me know if you need any help with any of that. Ooh, Sanji. I see you've chosen a name for your character. Tansy. I like that. Tansy the
Yeah.
Bard. Oh, and Deldrami for Thyra. Excuse me.
It's Fathira, thank you. Oh my god.
Deldrami for Thyra. Deldrami, I think there's this deli in the corner and make a really good Deldrami sandwich.
Okay, but I was thinking like she'd be Deldrami to her enemies, but like to her friends, she's just Del.
I like that. So you want to put your stats actually in the smaller portion of those boxes, and the top portion should populate on its own.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yep, filling out the things.
Yeah, we're going to go over background next. You don't got to worry about that, but let's try and get our ability points down at least.
Oh my god, you guys have such nice names. This is gonna be so ridiculous.
Alea.
Definitely went on like a fantasy name generator. While C was going over your guys' information, I was like, I'm gonna do this in the background. Same.
Yeah, I was thinking like.
See, I was actually looking for different flower meanings because I don't know, flower names are pretty cool. And then I came upon like Tansy, and then I was just like, okay, that's cool. It means like protection, resistance, and immortality. So okay.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
It's okay. For every even number above 10, it goes up +1. For every -2 below 10, it goes down -1. So 7 would be -2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 charisma, though.
Listen, I had to make a choice.
Oh, you made a choice.
I did. Honestly, I'm happy with it. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I achieved what I was going for, and that's all that matters. Now,
Barbarian is good at what Din Weasel. Not to be confused with Vin Diesel, but Din Weasel.
okay,
Din
listen,
Weasel's
it's a
good at
very
what they
tragic
do.
backstory. It's a very tragic backstory.
Let's hear it.
He was casted out from the Diesel family for being too short,
Oh,
and
Aww.
Oh, that's so.
he had to change his name. So Din Weasel.
all right. I like that we all got names for most part. Stats. Now, last but not least, we got to pick your character's backgrounds. So this is where you got to really start thinking of your character as less of like just a race and class and more of a person. Like, what do they do? What is their day to day? As you can see here on this on the left side of my screen, we have a long list of backgrounds. There's a lot of different things that your character can be or could have done, could do with their day to day lives. Each one gives you different bonuses to skills and different abilities, but it's up to you to choose. So because the list is so long, I mean, up to you guys. I can just slow scroll through it. I can read them off, or you can just kind of tell me what your character does, and we'll find one that fits.
I already got this.
All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and read them off from the top.
Oh my god, there's so many.
And if you find anything that sounds like it might be roughly related to your character,
I can interject, but hi, madam.
really,
Ah.
hi, madam. All right, I'm gonna start reading off these backgrounds. I'm gonna leave out the ones that are specific to certain locations and certain game types. If something sounds like it could be interesting for your character, just make a note of it, and we can go over it in more depth afterwards. Let's see. Acolyte, anthropologist, archaeologist, charlatan, city watch or investigator, crafter, cloistered scholar, courtier, criminal or spy, entertainer, merchant, far traveler, fisher, folk hero, gambler, gladiator, hermit, inheritor, a knight, a marine, veteran, a noble, an outlander, a pirate, a plaintiff, a sage, a sailor, a shipwright, a smuggler, a scientist, a soldier, a spy, urban bounty hunter, an urchin. Yeah. Do any of those sound like they match anything you had in mind for a character for your character right now?
Could you tell me more about Hermit?
Sure. The hermit means that you lived in seclusion, either in a sheltered community such as a monastery or entirely alone for a formative part of your life. In your time apart from clamor of society, you found quiet, solitude, and perhaps some of the answers you were looking for. It would give you training in the following skills: medicine and religion, and you would have the feature called Discovery, which is the quiet seclusion of your extended hermitage give you access to a unique and powerful discovery. The exact nature of this revelation depends on the nature of your seclusion. It might be a great truth about the cosmos, the deities, the powerful beings on the outer planes, or the forces of nature. It could be a sight that no one else has ever seen. You have uncovered a fact that has long been forgotten, or unearthed some relic of the past that could rewrite history. It might be information that would be damaging to the people who or consigned you to exile, and hence the reason for your return to society. Work with your DM to figure out what the hell that is.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about the gambler?
Yeah. All you need is to make a lot of gold. All you need to make a lot of gold is a little gold. Except at those times when all you need to have no gold at all is a little gold. Whether you're a good gambler or a bad one rarely matters, because no one can divine the whims of Lady Luck. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, but the thing about gambling is that someone is always willing to take a bet. You'd get training in the deception and insight skills. You'd get some equipment to start with, and your feature would be Never Tell Me the Odds. Odds and probability are your bread and butter. During downtime activities that involve games of chance or figuring odds are the best plan, you can get a solid sense of which choice is likely the best one and which opportunities seem too good to be true at the DM's determination.
Interesting, interesting.
Could you go over a charlatan real quick?
Sure.
Thank you.
A charlatan. You have always had a way with people. You know what makes them tick. You can tease out their heart's desire after a few minutes of conversation, and with a few leading questions you can read them like they were children's books. It's a useful talent, and one that you're perfectly willing to use for your advantage. You know what people want, and you deliver, or rather, you promise to deliver. Common sense should steer people away from things that sound too good to be true, but common sense seems to be in short supply when you're around. The bottle of pink-colored liquid will surely cure that unseemly rash. This ointment, nothing more than a bit of fat with a sprinkle of silver dust, can restore youth and vigor, and there's a bridge in the city that just happens to be for sale. These marvels sound implausible, but you make them sound like the real deal. You'd get training in deception and sleight of hand. You'd get certain items to start with, and your feature would be false identity. which is you have created a second identity that includes documentation, established acquaintances, and disguises that allow you to assume that persona. Additionally, you can forge documents, including official papers and personal letters, as long as you have seen an example of the kind of document or the handwriting you are trying to copy.
Um,
But
Anybody else have anything they want to look up or anything like that?
I just have a question. What kind of like situations would you roll for religion?
So if you are in a dungeon somewhere and you see like this carving on the wall and it belongs to some certain religious group, but you're not sure what, you'd roll religion for that. If you are in a cultist's area and you see a weird symbol of an ancient god, but you can't quite tell which one, you'd roll religion for that.
Okay. Oh,
Sorry.
so much.
I know. Sorry, just one more. Can I take a look at the smuggler by any chance?
Smuggler. Certainly. On a rickety barge, you carried 100 longswords and fish barrels right past the dock's master's oblivious lackeys. You have paddled a riverboat filled with stolen elven wine under the gaze of the moon and sold it for twice its value in the morning. In your more charitable times, you transported innocents out of war zones or helped guide herd animals to safety on the banks of a burning river. This would gain you training in athletics, deception. You would be proficient in water vehicles, and your feature would be down low, which is you are acquainted with a network of smugglers who are willing to help you out of tight situations. While in a particular town, city, or other similarly sized community, you and your companions can stay for free in safe houses. Safe houses provide a poor lifestyle. While staying at a safe house, you can choose to keep your presence a secret.
Ooh, very nice indeed.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else? Hello. Have you all decided on your backgrounds?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Now then,
Yes.
let's go through each of your backgrounds and see what it gives you training in. Claire Wiley, the Air Genasi class that isn't filled out. What is your background?
My background will be a sage.
Cool. You fill that out in your sheet, please. As a sage, you have spent years learning the lore of the multiverse. You scoured manuscripts, studied scrolls, and listened to the greatest experts on the subjects that interest you. Your efforts have made you a master in your fields of study. You are trained in the following skills: Arcana and History. So please fill in the little circle to the left of Arcana and History under your list of skills. Remember, you fill it with an X. Replace with an X, and it should fill in when you hit Enter. Yeah. Is Arcana and History. Also, if you scroll down to your tools and languages, you are proficient in any two languages of your choice. So go ahead and choose any two languages of like Elven, Dwarven, Celestial, Triton, stuff like that. You also have the following items, which can go on your, which you can write under your equipment somewhere. Equipment and treasure. I'm putting them in chat, but I'll go ahead and read them off. You have a bottle of black ink, a quill, a small knife, a letter from a dead colleague posing you a question you have not yet been able to answer. Oh, I like that. A set of common clothes, and a pouch containing 10 gold pieces. You also gain the following special ability, called Researcher. I'm going to put this in chat as well. Researcher says, when you attempt to learn or recall a piece of lore, if you do not know that information, you often know where and from whom you can obtain it. Usually this information comes from a library, scriptorium, university, or a sage, or other learned person or creature. Your DM might rule that the knowledge you seek is secreted away in an almost inaccessible place, or that it simply cannot be found. Unearthing the deepest secrets of the multiverse can require an adventure, or even a whole campaign. So you want to write that down somewhere under your features or traits. Up to you of how you want to summarize that, or if you want to put the whole thing to your character sheet. Do with it as you wish. Alright, moving on next to Matrix. You've decided on the background of Spy. Is that right?
Yes.
Alright. You're an experienced criminal with a history of breaking the law. You have spent a lot of time among other criminals and still have contacts within the criminal underworld. You're far closer than most people to the world of murder, theft, and violence that pervades the underbelly of civilization, and you have survived up to this point by flouting the rules and regulations of society. You are proficient in the following two skills, deception and stealth. Under tools and languages, you're proficient in one type of gaming set, like chess or dice, and thieves' tools. You also have the following equipment. I'm putting it in chat now. A crowbar, a set of dark common clothes, including a hood, and a pouch containing 15 gold pieces. Your feature is that you have a criminal contact. You have a reliable and trustworthy contact who acts as your liaison to a network of other criminals. You know how to get messages to and from your contact, even over great distances, specifically, you know the local messengers, corrupt caravan masters, and seedy sailors who can deliver messages for you. That's pretty cool. And there's your equipment. Next up, looking at Tanziel Tonin, the smuggler. Alright, so you have skill proficiencies in athletics and deception. You have proficiency with vehicles, water vehicles. And you have the following set of equipment. I'll go ahead and put it in chat. A fancy leather vest or a pair of leather boots, a set of common clothes, and a leather pouch with 15 gold pieces. And the feature I already told you about, I'm going to go ahead and put it back in chat. It's called Down Low, where basically you know a network of smugglers to call on. Eliza Lynn, the Hermit. Alright, you get training in the following skills. Medicine and religion. Go ahead and fill in those bubbles.
Got it.
You have tool proficiency in a herbalism kit. You can choose any one language of your choice. And here is the equipment that you get as a hermit. A scroll case stuffed full of notes from your studies or prayers, a winter blanket, a set of common clothes, an herbalism kit, and 5 gold pieces. And I'll go ahead and copy down the discovery feature we discussed earlier.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Din Weasel, the charlatan.
Yeah. I love the idea of him being a very terrible charlatan, so.
I also like that idea. Skill proficiencies are deception and sleight of hand. You have proficiencies in a disguise kit and a forgery kit. And you get a long list of equipment. I'm going to go ahead and start reading it. A set of fine clothes, a disguise kit, tools of the con of your choice, such as 10 stoppered bottles filled with colored liquid, or a set of weighted dice, or a deck of marked cards, or a signet ring of an imaginary duke, and a pouch containing 15 gold pieces.
Man, he's making bank still, so.
Yeah.
Follow me.
And his feature is, or Din Weasel's feature is false identity. That's the one we discussed earlier. Alright, does anybody else need anything else for their background? We are so close to finishing up on these character sheets. Nope. Alright, we're going to go back to classes and fill in specific things you get for your classes, and we should be just about good to go. Let's go and fill this out. Ari, you chose, what was your background? Sage. Okay. Eliza Lynn?
Was a hermit.
Hermit. Is Ari okay?
She got yeeted. I'll check on her.
Okay. Din Weasel is a charlatan. Matrix is a spy.
Yep.
And Sanji's character is... What was your background? Smuggler, right. Okay. Hopefully we get Ari back soon, but in the meantime, we'll go ahead and move over to Eliza Lynn. So as a cleric... Level 1 cleric. Oh boy. Okay. So your proficiency bonus is 2. We have that already, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Your hit points are 8 plus your constitution modifier.
Where is that on my sheet?
Constitution modifier is that plus number next to or underneath con.
And then where do I put... Oh, hit points. I can read.
So you want to put
so
it under
10.
current hit points as well as under hit point max.
Okay.
Let's see. Scrolling down to... You have a place here for proficiencies. I guess that's not necessary. So you can wear light armor, medium armor, and shields. You can use simple weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Your saving throws are wisdom and charisma. So it looks like you already filled those in. Good job.
I did.
Skills. So on top of the ones you already have, you can also choose 2 from history, insight, medicine, persuasion, and religion.
I can choose 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to do insight. And then... Could I double on religion from
No.
Herbert? And okay. I'll do
So it's history, insight, medicine, persuasion, religion.
Persuasion.
All right. And here are different sets of armor, of starting equipment you can choose from.
Okay.
I'll put them down. There's a lot of different choices there.
Wow.
So next thing is kind of a doozy. We got to choose your domain. This is basically what your specialty is, like what your gods, what specialty of your gods are you trying to go for?
Okay.
Assuming you want to be a healer, life is probably the best one at that.
I'll take it. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, so life domain. You also gain proficiency with heavy armor. That's cool.
Cool.
Your healing spells are more effective, so you want to put probably want to put this under features and traits. You gain proficiency with heavy armor. You get, whenever you use a spell of first level or higher to restore hit points to a creature, the creature gains an additional hit points to 2 plus the spell's level. So anytime you heal something, it's the spell level plus 2 as bonus healing points.
Okay.
And the rest of this stuff is stuff you don't get yet at this level. But let's see. Scrolling down to your spells.
Mm-hmm.
You want to put that under level 1 spells. You have
That's not the right spot.
yeah, I just realized that the way it's arranged is so weird. But you have bless and you have cure wounds.
Blush.
And cure wounds, and yeah, and then you have like every other cleric spell as well. but those two you have prepared. So the way that spell casting works with clerics is at the beginning of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure I'm getting this right. I'm pretty sure it's the way it works. So you prepare a list of spells. Okay, so each day you have to choose from your long list of spells which ones you're going to have prepared for that day.
Okay.
That's something we can go into more in a different session, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, in terms of creating your character, we have to get you some... So did the equipment pack you chose, did it include any armor?
Of the ones that you sent me?
Yeah.
I don't so do I pick one from each row? Or I don't understand how this is organized.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of A's and B's. Start with the following equipment. Yeah, I guess you choose 1A, 1B, and 1C.
Got it. Okay.
And then anything that also doesn't have an A, B, or a C.
Then I would go with leather armor.
Okay. Then your armor class is going to be... Leather armor is 2 armor. So 2 armor plus your dexterity bonus is 3, so 13.
Nice.
Your initiative is going to be your dexterity bonus, which is just +1. And your character is good to go.
Woohoo!
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. I know this is taking kind of long. Hopefully, we can get through the rest of it relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Ari, you back?
Am I back?
Yeah,
Yay!
yeah.
All right.
All right. Welcome back, Ari. All right, so we're just
Yeah,
gonna
I'm back
finish up your
here.
character sheet, and we're gonna be good to go. So you are a sorcerer, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So your proficiency bonus is 2. Your hit points grand total is going to be 6 plus your Constitution modifier. So you want to put that under your current hit points as well as your hit point max, which will be 9. Your saving throws, you are proficient in Constitution and Charisma. So go ahead and fill in the bubble just like you did with your skills. And on top of the skills you already have, you can choose 2 from the following list: Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. Under your equipment, go ahead and choose this list I'm about to post right now. 1 from A, 1 from B, and then anything that doesn't have a letter, so the 2 daggers as well. So it looks like there's something you got to choose now, which makes sense since it's in your bloodline. It makes sense you choose it when you create your character. You got to choose how your character got the magic. There's a couple of different versions. I'll go ahead and quickly describe them, see which one you want to do. One looks like a clockwork soul. Looks like you were touched by the realm of Mechanus, which is like a place of cogs and gears and things that were like, like automatons and like machines and machinations. There is divine soul, which is basically your magic comes from some kind of divine energy that touched you, that lies in your bloodline. Draconic bloodline, which is basically there is a dragon somewhere in your ancestry. Shadow magic, which is like some evil or dark shadow form lies in your ancestry. Storm sorcery, which is literally like lightning and storms and some kind of storm elemental lies in your ancestry. Or wild magic, which is like random crazy magic just happened to blossom in your bloodline. Might be cool to go with storm sorcery because you're already like an air genasi. Ari, we lose you again?
I'll message her.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move over to Matrix. Alright, let's finish up your character, Matrix. Rogues are relatively easy, which is good stuff. Your hit points is going to be 8 plus your Constitution modifier. You can go and put that under current hit points as well as hit point max. Thank you. Your saving throws are going to be Dexterity and Intelligence, so go ahead and fill in the bubble next to both of those. Now, because you're a rogue and their specialty is skills, you can choose 4 from the following list of skills to train yourself in. I'll go ahead and copy it into chat because it's such a long list. But I'll read it out loud as well for everybody at home. You get to choose 4 from the list of Acrobatics, Athletics, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Investigation, Perception, Performance, Persuasion, Sleight of Hand, and Stealth. Skills are what rogues are all about, so that's why you get the longest list and the most skills to choose from. As for your equipment, you can choose one from columns A, B, and C from these lists I'm posting now.
Question. So the portion at the bottom that you just sent, that's also included with whatever is from A, B, and C?
Yeah, the part that doesn't have a letter, that means you get it regardless.
Okay, thank you.
You also gain an ability called Expertise. That means choose 2 of your skill proficiencies you've already chosen. You get to add double your proficiency bonus to those.
So do I just double mark those, or like?
I think the best way to do it would be to just change the number yourself manually.
Okay.
Just add an additional 2 to any 2 of those skills you chose. Does it not work? Oh, there you go. Oh, you're only adding 2 to those. Yeah. Okay. Under features and traits, you want to put 2 things. One is sneak attack 1d6. That means any time that you get the drop on an enemy, or you can fight an enemy that has one of your friends near it, or just any time you could fight an enemy and he's distracted, you get to do an additional 1d6 of damage. You also want to put under your features and traits Thieves' Cant, which is basically a special type of language that only other rogues can speak. It's kind of like a pigeon type of language that can only be interpreted by other rogues. All right, your armor, assuming it's going to be leather, is going to be 15, so AC is 15. And your initiative is +3. Because that's just your dexterity bonus. And that's that. That's your character.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Okay, moving on to Izzy, if you're ready.
Yeehaw, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Moving on to the barbarian. Let's see. So your hit points is going to be 12 plus your constitution modifier. Beefy Din Weasel.
Beef.
Okay. It's 15, right?
Yeah. You also want to put that under your hit point max.
Sorry, hold on. Lost.
It's right above current hit points. It's kind of grayed out.
Oh.
Your saving throws you're trained in are strength and constitution. So go ahead and fill in those bubbles. And on top of the skills you already have, you can also train 2 from this list. Animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival.
You said 2, right?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and read that list again. It's animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. I'm going to post the equipment you can choose from. Choose one from column A, one from column B, and then you get that third line as well. And then under features, whenever you're ready. Sure, sure.
I don't know what simple weapons are, so I'm just gonna call it a day.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think of dinner.
Sorry.
What are y'all thinking about for dinner?
I ordered
Hamburger?
sushi.
Sushi. Sushi sounds good.
Oh no, I broke this.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I'm gonna go on the line under it.
The panic.
That's what I get for trying to copy paste.
How did you even do that? I don't understand.
What did you do?
Oh god. That's good enough, you know? I'm gonna call
Yeah,
it.
that's good. So under features and traits, go ahead and just write down the 2 following things. You have rage, and you want to put 2 times, like 2x, and then also plus 2. That means you can do rage 2 times per day, and when you are raging, you get plus 2 to damage.
Oh, that's wild. Okay, cool.
And then the next line you want unarmored defense. And what unarmored defense means is that so long as you're not wearing armor, you get to add your dexterity modifier and your con modifier, and that's your armor class. So 1 plus 3 plus a base of 10 is 14 for your armor class.
That's cool. Like that. Alright.
So under AC, you want to put 14. And under initiative, you want to put plus 1.
I thought I broke it again. I'm sorry.
It is somehow really small. Under speed, you want to put 30 FT, like 30 feet. And you are good to go.
Yay!
Yay!
Woohoo!
All right,
Okay,
so
quick question. But
yeah.
I'm sorry. Where do I put? Okay, so you know how I got that a bunch of like crap for being a charlatan. Where do I put that?
Equipment and treasure. It's right underneath tools and languages and features and traits.
Okay, gotcha. Write it out this time.
I mean, or not. It's not like we're going to be doing anything with these characters. We're just making them.
Yeah.
True.
And let's see. Sanji, you ready?
Yep.
All right, as a bard. Let's see. So your hit points is going to be 8 plus your constitution modifier. Straight up 8. All right. Let's see. For your saving throws, you're going to want to mark dexterity and charisma. For your skills, this is interesting. Just because bards can do a little bit of everything, you can just choose any 3.
Whoa.
Sorry, any 3?
Mm-hmm.
Go nuts.
Oh, crap.
See, these could totally be used for games in the future. Yeah, sure. They're perfectly viable characters. All right, here is your equipment. Choose one from A, B, and C. And under features and traits,
Yep.
just go ahead and write in Bardic Inspiration. And you can put next to it D6. And the way that works is, in combat, you can use a bonus action to give any of your allies within 60 feet of you who can hear you Bardic Inspiration. It's like playing a song on your lute and saying, "You are going to do great." And sometime within the next 10 minutes, they can use that D6 as a bonus to their number rolled, just kind of like we do in T&D.
So I also add in the D6 as part of my features and traits.
Yeah, you want because you just want to know how much of a bonus you're giving them, and it'll be a little reminder for you there. You're giving them a D6 to use sometimes in the next 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. As for your armor, did you choose any armor? It's like leather armor, right?
Yeah, leather armor.
So your AC is going to be 13, and your init is going to be +1. And are we good? Did we hit everybody? I know Ari DC'd, but anybody else? I think we're all good, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Go team.
Heckin' yeah.
Woohoo!
This is why most D&D sessions, like whenever you're playing with a new group, usually session 1 is called, they call it session 0, because it's just everybody getting together and making characters together. Because it can take a while, as you can see. But yeah, these are the basics of character creation. There's still a couple of additional things we can do, like spell choosing and going over spell lists, but honestly, magic is its whole thing that I think deserves its own session of one of these training sessions, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But for now, thank you so much for joining me, y'all. Here are your characters. You done made them yourselves. Congratulations. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Round of applause for everybody in the chat and vice versa.
Go team.
Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Did we have any leftover questions or anything that you wanted to know about creating a character, or how it converts into playing the game? If you have anything like that, let me know. I'll hang out for a little bit before we close up the stream. In the meanwhile, though, Ari, Eliza, Matrix, Sanji, and Izzy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the progress. Oh, you know what? There's one last thing I wanted to do here in the progress. So I wanted to fill in your roles. So Ari's role, presumably, is going to be damage as a sorcerer. Eliza Lynn, I believe you said your role was going to be healer, right?
Yeah. Always and
Izzy,
forever.
as a barbarian charlatan, I imagine your role is beating people up, so damage as well.
Of course. Every time.
So I'm going to put damage, melee. And then it's a sorcerer, probably damage, ranged. Matrix, your role is going to be sneaky. Do you find yourself doing a lot of fighting and like sneaking and stabbing people, or are you more focused on skills and avoiding combat?
Combat.
All right. And Sanji, as a bard, I think it's safe to say that your character plays more of a support role. You think that's fair to say?
Yep, because I love supporting all my friends. Hey.
Oh.
That is so wholesome.
Now, looking over your character sheets, I would like you to tell me what your character specialties are.
How would we determine that?
What is your character really good at, based on what can your character do that nobody else can do? This is more of like assessing what you did today and assessing what your decisions meant, and assessing what it is that your characters can do. Kind of like a self-confidence check. For example, Eliza Lynn, I'd say your character can heal better than anyone else.
I mean, that's what I was going to jump on. I have a +6 for medicine.
Healing and keeping people alive. What is Din Weasel really good at?
I don't remember who said it in chat earlier, but I'm gonna say smashing kneecaps like a pro.
Smashing kneecaps like a pro. I love it. Matrix, what is your character, what is Alea? Alea Lunasath. What's their specialty?
I feel like her specialty is assassination.
Ooh, nice. Assassinación. Nope, that's not how you spell anything.
English is hard sometimes.
It is, most times. And Sanji, what is Tansy Altonin good at?
I would have to say seduction.
Oh, ho, ho.
A bard.
Go on.
And we stretch this a little bit. There you go. All right. And Ari's probably burning things. All right. Well, today we have gone and created 5 perfectly capable, useful characters that can actually work in a game. And I hope in the process you all learned some stuff and gain some confidence in how to play D&D.
Thanks for leading us through this. It's really awesome. Thanks for being patient with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. D&D can be a bit tiresome and a bit like taxes sometimes, but I don't know. I kind of like it.
I much
It's,
prefer this to taxes.
Honestly.
Normally when you're playing D&D, you get to use things like D&D Beyond, where a lot of the figuring out stuff is a lot more automated. As a matter of fact, let me show you, I guess, as opposed to what we just did, let me show you the process of creating a character in D&D Beyond.
I literally went on D&D Beyond and plugged all of this in while we were doing this.
Nice.
So say I want to create a character. Take up the rest of the screen. Make it really big so people can actually read it. Be like Cardlin. And let's say Cardlin is a Bardlin.
Nice.
Choose a picture that looks kind of roughly Cardlin-ish. Sure, it looks kind of roughly Cardlin-ish. Cardlin is probably a half-elf or a human. What do you think?
You're telling me Cardlin's not a bard?
That's crazy.
I mean, if we're doing that, then he's definitely like a half elf to add like the beauty of elves into this.
All right, let's say he's a wood half-elf because I insist that he's Filipino. So, as we know, wood elves get a +2 bonus to charisma by default, and they get a +2 to any other ability score. So let's say dexterity, and I can't do charisma again, so constitution. We get dark visions. We don't need to do anything there. Anywhere that you see this blue exclamation point means that there's a choice to be made. So we have 1 additional language. We'll go ahead and choose Dwarvish. Why not? Half-elf variant. Which kind of half-elf do we want to be? Let's make Cardlin fleet of foot, so he's pretty quick in walking around. Class. He's a bard. Add class.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Cool. Thank you.
Why, what?
Oh no, I definitely
Oh.
mixed up race in class earlier.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna let that
You
slide.
just took me through 3 hours of creating a character and then I immediately forgot everything. It was incredible.
It's okay, Eliza. You're doing great, sweetie.
I feel Cardlin plays a lute, a pan flute, and a viol. Because why not?
Why not?
He's definitely equipped in, trained in persuasion and deception,
Ooh,
and
yeah,
he's performance for sure.
for sure.
Spell casting, you don't have to do anything there. Bardic inspiration's already calculated out. Hit this thing again. Choose a generation method. Let's do point buy. So we want to put as much as possible in charisma. And probably a decent amount in everything else. Probably not a penalty in anything else. Not particularly strong, not particularly maybe a little more dexterous than normal. A little more intelligent than normal, perhaps. And just a touch more wisdom.
Wow, look at him. That's 17 in charisma, though.
Background. Entertainer. Let's choose a skill. It would be... let's do intimidation. Just when necessary. Training in one more instrument. Let's make it the bagpipes, of course.
Oh my god.
Perfect.
He has the feature of, by popular demand, you can always find a place to perform, usually in an inn or tavern, but possibly a circus. That's cool. This is his equipment. We just choose his equipment. Let's say he has a rapier, an entertainer's pack, a lute. He also has his pan flute. Oh, a love letter, a lock of hair, or a trinket.
A
lock
love
of
letter.
hair?
Gotta have a love letter, right?
That's so scary.
A lock of hair. How terrifying.
And bada bing, bada boom, character sheet.
Wow.
This does not take 3 hours, as you see, but it also doesn't. But it also doesn't teach me about a lot of things, though I can learn about it here. Like, what is my bardic inspiration? How many times can I use it before a long rest? Okay, cool. My armor class is currently 11 because I don't have any armor on. I have to go to my equipment, find my leather armor, click it. My armor class has gone up to 12. Hooray.
Woohoo.
Oh, that means all of your armor classes, for those of you wearing armor, is one too many. You have to subtract one. Leather armor is actually just one armor class.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, yeah, we have Cardlin the Bardlin. Hooray. Good job, everybody.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
so easy.
This was a fun stream. Thank you all so much for being here. Yeah, hopefully we get to do more stuff like this. Maybe next time we can go over combat or spells or some other aspect of D&D. I really love the idea of more people playing Dungeons and Dragons now more than ever. And I hope to actually get to play Dungeons and Dragons with some of you sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be fun. All right, catch y'all on the flippity flop. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go take a nappy nap.
Okay.
Big thanks to the mods for holding it down as always. Big thanks to Ari, Eliza, Matrix, Sanji, and Izzy for joining us today, and thanks to all of you for showing up. See you later. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
See you later. Bye.